I was 32 when I thought I had it all figured out. New York had a way of grinding people down, but somehow I thrived on it. The late nights, the neon blur of taxis, the endless boardroom battles, it was fuel to me. I wasn't some kid hustling for scraps. I was on the fast track, building a reputation as the strategist who could turn chaos into clarity. I had carved out a spot at Argonne Consulting, one of those firms that liked to brag about disruption while billing Fortune 500 clients 7 figures for slide decks. My specialty? Market turnarounds. When a competitor ate your lunch, I was the one who built the playbook to take your dinner back too. At least, that's what I thought. Until I learned that sometimes the sharpest knives aren't held by rivals across the street, but by the people sitting 2 chairs down in your own conference room. It started small. A missing document here. A forgotten invitation to a client dinner there. Subtle things, the kind of professional static you brush off because, well, people are sloppy. Or at least, that's what I told myself. But the static got louder. One morning, a VP forwarded me a client memo that I was supposedly responsible for. Except it wasn't my draft. It was a butchered version of it, full of errors with my name still at the bottom. He wanted to know why I was slipping. I stared at that email like it was written in another language, because I knew I hadn't sent it. Someone else had taken my work, mangled it, and pushed it out with my signature. A deliberate move. And when I confronted my project lead, Todd, the kind of guy who wore cufflinks with his initials engraved on them, he just smirked and said, "You're moving too fast. Slow down. Mistakes happen when you're in a rush." It was the kind of smug dismissal you don't forget. The real hit came 3 weeks later. I had been running point on a massive retail client, rolling out a digital transformation strategy that would shift them into e-commerce dominance. Months of work, countless late nights, entire weekends burned. And then, during the final boardroom presentation, the slides went up. Except they weren't mine. They were Todd's. Word for word. My models, my frameworks, even my damn metaphors. And he sold it. Smooth, confident. Like the genius strategist who had led the project. I sat there, forced to nod along while executives clapped, while he soaked in the praise. No credit, no mention, nothing. By Monday, the internal announcement went out. Todd promoted to senior partner. Me? I was advised to take a step back. Regroup. Support. A polite way of saying, stay in the shadows while the men take center stage. That night, I went home, poured a glass of cheap bourbon, and let the city lights blur into streaks through my apartment window. I felt like someone had ripped out the floor under me. Years of grinding, sacrificed weekends, constant hustle, and for what? To be erased in the final moment? Here's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't just cut, it clarifies. I realized, sitting in that apartment with bourbon burning down my throat, that I had 2 choices. I could keep playing their game, waiting for another shot, hoping the knives stayed sheathed next time. Or I could flip the table, and I decided right there. If they thought I was out, if they thought I'd just swallow the humiliation, they had no idea who they were dealing with. Because if Todd had stolen my idea once, I could build something he'd never be able to steal. I quit within 2 weeks, not a loud exit, not a dramatic mic drop email. Just silence. The kind of silence that unnerves people because they don't know what you're planning. Behind that silence, I was planning war. I took the bones of the retail strategy I had designed, the parts they hadn't even bothered to notice, and rebuilt it from the ground up. But this time, I wasn't building a pitch deck. I was building a company. I called it Nova Market Dynamics. It started in a cramped co-working space in Brooklyn. Just me, a couple of trusted engineers I convinced with pizza and late-night promises, and a whiteboard scrawled with arrows and what-if questions. We weren't just going to consult. We were going to automate what I had been building manually for clients. Predictive consumer behavior models that could adjust pricing, inventory, and marketing in real time. At Argonne, they dismissed it as too experimental. At Nova, it became our religion. Our first client wasn't glamorous, a mid-size apparel brand bleeding money on overstock. But when our system saved them $4.2 million in a single quarter, word spread. fast. Soon, we weren't just helping brands survive. We were helping them eat Argonne's lunch. I remember the first time I saw Todd again, 9 months later at a retail innovation conference in Chicago. He walked past our booth, saw the Nova logo, and froze for just half a second, that little crack in his perfect, polished armor. I didn't say a word. I just smiled, because by then, I knew what he didn't. This was only the beginning. Building Nova wasn't just about business. It was about vengeance disguised as innovation. Every contract we signed, every client we rescued from the sloppy grip of Argonne Consulting, felt like a strike carved into the stone wall they had tried to build around me. And make no mistake, I wasn't here to just compete. I was here to gut their market share until Todd and his smug little cufflinks couldn't smile anymore. We weren't playing safe. We didn't have board politics, bloated processes, or committees slowing us down. We had speed, hunger, and the one thing they never gave me: freedom. Within 18 months, Nova wasn't a scrappy little startup anymore. We had 30 employees packed into a converted warehouse in Brooklyn, a client list that spanned fashion, food delivery, and even automotive, and, most importantly, revenue that made investors salivate. While Argonne kept pitching digital transformation, we were already 10 steps ahead. Our predictive engine didn't just give numbers, it told companies exactly what to do next, where to place inventory, how to price a product today versus tomorrow, when to trigger flash promotions that drained competitors dry. The results? Ruthless efficiency. Brands that worked with us didn't just survive, they devoured their competitors. And word traveled, fast. By year 2, I started hearing whispers. Argonne partners were concerned. Clients they had milked for decades were slipping away. The industry press started calling Nova the quiet disruptor, though I laughed at that. There was nothing quiet about what I was doing. Then came the best headline I've ever read. Todd Miller's retail division suffers major client exodus. Analysts cite disruptive new entrant. I saved that clipping, framed it, hung it right by my desk, because it wasn't just business. It was personal. Our first direct face-off with Argonne came when we both pitched the same Fortune 100 retail giant. They had requested proposals separately. Argonne came in with their polished decks, tailored suits, and buzzwords stacked on buzzwords. Todd, of course, led the pitch, waving his hands like some messiah of corporate jargon. Then it was my turn. I didn't bring a deck. I brought results. Real dashboards, real-time analytics, live simulations showing exactly how their sales would grow if they used Nova. The room leaned forward. Questions flew at me like sparks. I answered every one, sharp, confident, unapologetic. When I finished, there was silence. The CEO of the client finally said, "So, why would we need Argonne again?" Todd's face. God, I wish I could have bottled it. That perfect blend of rage and panic hiding under his forced smile. We walked out with the contract, a multi-year, multi-million-dollar deal. By that point, something in me had shifted. I wasn't the woman who once cried into her bourbon, wondering why her hard work wasn't enough. I was steel now, sharper, colder. I stopped apologizing for being direct in meetings, stopped softening my voice to make others comfortable. If someone tried to talk over me, I didn't wait. I cut through, because I had learned the truth. The corporate world doesn't reward patience. It rewards dominance. And I was done playing nice. The real dagger came in year 3. Argonne had just closed a deal with a major supermarket chain, bragging in the press about how they'd redefine grocery shopping. Except, I knew their model, because it was mine. The same skeleton Todd had stolen years ago, dressed up in new colors, so I went to war. We undercut their pricing by half, offered integration in weeks, not months, promised measurable results within a single quarter, and we delivered. The supermarket chain tore up their Argonne contract and signed with us. When the news broke, Argonne's stock dipped. Not much, just a couple of points. but enough that analysts started asking uncomfortable questions on earnings calls. And me? I sat in my loft with champagne this time, not bourbon, watching the financial news while Todd's name got dragged through the mud. By 36, I wasn't just a consultant anymore. I was a CEO of a company valued at $450 million. Investors courted me. Magazines wanted my story. Speaking gigs, panels, interviews, it was a blur. But behind every smile for the cameras, I carried the memory of that boardroom, that stolen presentation, that smirk Todd gave me when he told me to slow down. And every time someone asked me, "What drives you?" I smiled and said, "Innovation." But the truth, it was revenge. Sweet, methodical revenge. By then, Argonne was bleeding. Their old guard partners were whispering about restructuring. Younger consultants were defecting to Nova in waves. Clients once considered untouchable were slipping through their fingers. Todd tried to fight back. He launched press releases, rebranded their division, even slashed fees to lure back clients. But the market had tasted something better, and you can't untaste freedom. One night, an ex-colleague still inside Argonne called me. Her voice was hushed, like she was leaking state secrets. "They're obsessed with you. Every strategy meeting, it's your name, your company, you're all they talk about." I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my glass. Because that was the sweetest victory of all, knowing that the empire that once erased me couldn't stop whispering my name. By year 4, Nova wasn't just another startup anymore. We were the storm rewriting the rules of the industry. Valuation, $1.1 billion. Headcount, 220. Clients, household names that once wouldn't have returned my calls when I worked at Argonne. We weren't begging for attention anymore. We were the attention. Headlines, analyst reports, unicorn status, it was all ours. But to me, the real milestone wasn't the billion-dollar valuation. It was when the same retail giant that Todd had stolen my work to win years ago called me directly and said, "We're done with Argonne. Can Nova take over?" That moment felt like rewriting history with my own pen. Argonne's decline wasn't instant. It was slow, painful, public. Clients peeled away like paint off a crumbling wall. Quarterly earnings dipped. Their retail innovation division, Todd's golden child, became the butt of industry jokes. At one point, an analyst on a live call asked, "Why should shareholders believe in your leadership when Nova is clearly eating your market alive?" The silence on that line was delicious. Inside, I imagined Todd sweating through his perfect suit, cufflinks glinting while his empire cracked around him. The climax came at the Global Retail Summit in Las Vegas. It was the kind of event where CEOs strutted like peacocks, where champagne flowed like water, and where billion-dollar contracts started with a handshake. Both Argonne and Nova had keynotes scheduled. Todd went first. Same slicked-back hair, same rehearsed cadence, same empty promises wrapped in glossy slides. I watched from the audience, arms folded, expression unreadable. Then it was my turn. I walked onto that stage in a sharp black suit, no slides, no theatrics, just me and the mic, and I tore into them. I exposed how Argonne's models were outdated, how their innovations were recycled frameworks from 5 years ago. I shared case studies of clients who had defected to Nova, complete with numbers. Profits doubled, waste slashed, revenue unlocked. Then I dropped the hammer. A live demo of Nova's predictive engine running simulations with real retail data. On the giant screen behind me, the audience watched as Nova identified $87 million in untapped revenue streams in under 3 minutes. Gasps, whispers. The room lit up with phones as people snapped photos, recorded clips, tweeted the hell out of it. By the time I walked off stage, the choice was clear. Argonne was obsolete. Later that evening, in the glittering chaos of the hotel lobby, Todd cornered me. His smile was forced, brittle. "You've made your point," he said. "But you and I both know this industry has cycles. You won't always be the golden child. Investors will turn. Clients will leave. Don't burn every bridge. You might need one someday." I looked him dead in the eye and replied, "Todd, I don't rebuild bridges I never crossed, and I sure as hell don't need your approval anymore." For the first time, I saw it, the crack in his confidence, the realization that he wasn't untouchable, that the girl he once erased from a boardroom was now the woman rewriting the map. 3 months later, Argonne's board announced a strategic restructuring, which was corporate code for heads were about to roll. Todd's name was conspicuously absent from the leadership page the next morning. He was gone. I didn't celebrate with champagne this time. I didn't need to. His downfall wasn't a single moment. It was years in the making, a slow bleed orchestrated by the company he thought would never exist. People often ask me if revenge was worth it, if spending years building Nova with Argonne in my crosshairs was healthy or productive. Here's my answer. Revenge built me. It sharpened me, fueled me, turned my pain into power. Without Todd's betrayal, maybe I'd still be grinding for scraps in a cubicle, waiting for someone else to validate me. Instead, I built my own empire. On my terms, with my name on it, and every time I pass by Argonne's crumbling office in Midtown, I smile. Because I know the truth. They sabotaged my career, but I sabotaged their market share, and I won. Now at 38, I don't chase approval anymore. I don't beg for recognition in boardrooms that were never built for me. I own the boardroom, and if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. The best revenge isn't just living well. It's watching your rivals choke on the success they swore you'd never have. When Nova crossed the billion-dollar line, reporters loved to call me the disruptor, the face of modern retail, even the woman who outmaneuvered the titans. But at night, when I finally turned off my phone and let silence fill the room, I thought less about headlines and more about the path behind me. The sleepless nights, the bourbon-soaked rage in my tiny apartment when I realized Todd had stolen my work. The hunger that drove me to risk everything on an idea no one else believed in. And the truth hit me. Success didn't feel like a fairy tale ending. It felt like scars, beautiful, brutal scars that reminded me of every battle I had survived. People rarely talk about the personal cost of revenge. They glamorize the triumph, the big wins, the champagne toasts. But they skip the lonely flights at 3 a.m., the relationships that crumbled because I was married to the company, the friendships that dissolved when I couldn't show up anymore. I lost people. I lost moments I can't get back. Birthdays, weddings, quiet mornings when I could have just been a woman in her 30s instead of a CEO carrying an army on her back. Do I regret it? Sometimes. But then I think of that boardroom, that humiliation, the way Todd smirked while standing on my work, erasing me as if I never mattered. And I remember why I chose fire over forgiveness. What revenge really gave me wasn't just dominance over Argonne. It gave me clarity. I learned that power isn't granted, it's taken. That recognition doesn't arrive with patience. It's seized with unapologetic hands. I stopped apologizing for ambition, stopped shrinking to fit into spaces that weren't built for me. Because I realized something dangerous. Once you taste freedom, the kind where you call the shots, where no one can erase your name from your own work, you never go back. People always ask me about him. Where is Todd now? The truth? I don't really care. Last I heard, he was advising second-tier firms, trying to stay relevant on LinkedIn with hollow articles about leadership in uncertain times. But Todd doesn't haunt me. He never did. What haunted me was the part of myself that almost gave up, the version of me that almost accepted being erased. I killed that version, and in her place, I built someone unshakable. If I could leave one lesson for anyone listening, it would be this. Your enemies will teach you more than your friends ever will. The people who betray you, who underestimate you, who steal from you, they're the ones who carve the hunger into your bones. Don't waste time asking, why me? Ask, what now? because what now is the moment that defines you. When they push you down, do you crawl away? Or do you stand, sharper, colder, and build something they can't touch? I chose the second, and it changed everything. Nova is no longer fueled by revenge alone. We're building for the future now. AI-driven retail, global expansions, partnerships that would have once been unthinkable. But that fire, that ruthless edge, it never leaves you. It's part of my DNA now, and maybe that's okay. Maybe we need people who have walked through fire to build the kind of companies that don't flinch when storms hit. They sabotaged my career. They thought they had buried me, erased me, locked me in a box of silence. But I didn't stay buried. I built an empire on the ashes of their arrogance. And the sweetest part? I didn't just win. I didn't just survive. I rewrote the entire game, so if you ever find yourself betrayed, cast aside, told you're not enough, remember this. You don't need their approval. You don't need their stage. You can build your own, and when you do, make sure it's so bright that the people who once ignored you can't look away without burning their eyes. Because success is the loudest revenge, and I plan to keep screaming. I sat back in my loft that night, the city buzzing outside my window, and poured myself a glass of bourbon, not the cheap kind I once drowned my rage in, but the smooth, expensive kind you savor. This time, it wasn't about forgetting. It was about remembering. I raised the glass, let the burn settle into something almost sweet, and smiled. Revenge didn't just taste good. It tasted like victory. And if you want to share more victories with me, don't just watch. Like this video, subscribe, and stay with me for the next story.